Now, now the is a very important topic for especially for the general physicians because quite often for any surgery the patient is sent to them for the pre-operative assessment, cardiac risk assessment. Of course, in the cardiac surgery they are already in the hands of the cardiologists and the cardiothoracic surgeon. So, but for other surgeries also, it is equally important to assess the cardiac risk factor. So the next topic is the assessment of cardiac risk in the patient of undergoing non-cardiac surgeries. Dr. Manoj Gupta is a well-known cardiologist, and he is going to talk about it.
Thank you, and very good evening, all the chairpersons and the participants in this wonderful meeting.
Battery down.
So, very good evening. Uh, Basically, this is a very important topic and useful for all the cardiologists, physicians, surgeons, anesthetists, and I can see few surgeons here. One is Krishnaji Pandey and another is Mahesh Chandivedi. So two surgeons are also here. So we are going to discuss how cardiac assessment should be done before any non-cardiac surgery. So we all know, we should know the surgical risk depends on many patients as well as surgical types. So we should know the urgency of surgery, because we all know that emergency surgery is associated with more adverse events. So what is emergency surgery? Emergency surgery means where there is immediate threat to life without surgical intervention, and this is usually within 2 hours. So if any surgery we have to perform in emergency, this is emergency. Then there comes urgent surgery. Means urgent surgery means when there is threat to life without surgical intervention within 24 hours of life. And then there are time sensitive surgeries and elective surgeries. In time sensitive surgery we can delay surgery up to 3 months. So, based on type of surgery and the urgency of surgery, the overall risk is calculated. There are many types of surgeries which are low risk surgery, like breast surgery, endocrine, gynae surgeries, but there are some surgeries which are called elevated risk surgery, and vascular, thoracic, transplant, neurosurgery. These are the surgeries put in high or elevated risk surgeries. Then there are intermediate risk surgeries like general, ENT surgeries, orthopedic, genitourinary, or any surgery involving peritoneum or abdominal. So if the risk is more than 1%, MACE risk is more than 1%, we call it elevated risk surgeries. So the risk is calculated based on many risk calculators. One very commonly performed is RCRI risk scoring system, which is revised cardiac risk index. This is based on six main points, which is history of ischemic heart disease, history of stroke, raised creatinine, high surgical risk patients. When we are calculating risk, there are many risk calculators, there are many patient factors, there are many surgical factors, then we can take help of cardiac biomarkers. So in any patients with known cardiovascular disease who is considered for non-cardiac surgery, we can use various type of risk prediction tool to calculate risk. I have already told one commonly used is revised cardiac risk index, which is available online. Nowadays there is another NSQIP risk scoring system is also available, by which you can calculate the level of risk. So two important patient related factors which are important for risk assessment is, one is functional capacity of patient. This is very important, and if you are calculating risk, you should ask the patient whether he can walk up to 2 flight of stairs or not, or he can walk at moderate speed up to 2 blocks. Means his capacity is more than 4 meds. Means there is good functional status. For objective assessment, you can take help of Duke Activity Status Index also. Another important index is frailty, and we all know there is physiological decline across multiple organ system, resulting in increased vulnerability to stressors. And as patient ages, like if patient is very elderly, more than 65 years of age, there is around 10% prevalence of frailty, and frailty is more in women compared to males. There are various instruments by which we can calculate the frailty. So these are two important aspects. Now there is some role of biomarkers also for the risk assessment. One is anti-proBNP and another is cardiac troponin. In patients those who are established or known case of cardiovascular disease, or elderly patients, or patients with symptoms suggestive of cardiovascular disease, it is reasonable that we can send patients for anti-proBNP or BNP assessment before surgery to supplement evaluation of perioperative risk. At the same time, if patient is elderly or patient with cardiovascular system, it is reasonable to measure cardiac troponin. So if you see the level of the recommendation is 2A or 2B indication only, because most of this data is based not on very large randomized study, but mostly these are based on observational or very small randomized trials. Now we very often ask for ECG in every patient. So what is the recommendation? You see, if pre-operative ECG shows any new abnormality, like you have sent patient for ECG, there is ST elevation, depression, LV hypertrophy, Q waves, or you are seeing heart block, bundle branch block, QT prolongation, you should obtain further evaluation. Means you should these patient to cardiologist for a detailed evaluation. If patient is going for a low risk surgery, then they recommend the ECG is of no benefit in calculating the risk. If patient is a known case of CAD, peripheral arterial disease, history of CVA, or patient is symptomatic, ECG should be done in all cases. Again, the role of echo. Any patient with history of new dyspnea or physical examination finding showing features of heart failure, or there is suspected or new worsening of LV dysfunction is there, patient should be sent for echo for assessment of LV function. And routine pre-operative evaluation LV function is not recommended in all patients. If patient is not symptomatic, patient is not having any history of dyspnea, heart failure, or any symptom suggestive of heart disease. Now role of stress test or CPET. You see, routine stress test is not recommended in all cases. If patient is low risk for perioperative CV event, no role of stress test. Low risk procedure, no indication for stress test. Or if patient is having good functional capacity, means if he can walk more than 4 minutes, there is no role of stress test. But if patient is having history of poor or unknown functional status, patient is undergoing elevated risk non-cardiac surgery or elevated risk perioperative CV event probability is more than 1%, there are 3 type of stress tests are available. One is simple, which we call TMT. Another is dobutamine stress echocardiography. Another is vasodilator pharmacological stress testing. Dobutamine is, we should know what are the contraindications for TMT and all. If patient is
Oh,
having
Amantar,
high grade
अब
arrhythmias,
अब
hypotension, all these things, and dobutamine stress is
कहाँ
contraindicated in
है अभी?
patient those who are having critical AS or hemodynamically significant LVOT
नहीं, जरा
obstruction.
सा एक बार रस्सी तो निकल
There
गया
is
ना, एक
another
बार इसको
test
थोड़ा
which is
सा
called
देख
CPET, which
लेता,
is cardiopulmonary exercise
शायद बीपी
testing,
कम
which
था कि
gives
क्या
you
था।
additional
तो अगर इधर ही
additional
होगा ना,
physiological data
एक बार
to
हलवाई
inform
कर लेता, देख लेगा कि
perioperative
ठीक
care
है,
or guide
फिर एक बार
optimization
देख
of
लेता तो
patient.
ठीक रहेगा।
Now CT angiography. If patient is low risk patients, surgical risk is low, functional capacity is adequate, CT angiography is not recommended. But in those patients, those who are high risk patient, high surgical risk, or patient with poor or unknown functional capacity, there is class 2B indications to go for coronary CT angiogram. Invasive coronary angiographic no role in patients. Routine pre-op ICA is not recommended. Only indication in patient those who have ACS, angina despite medical therapy, or moderate to severe ischemia or obstructive left main disease. So stepwise approach is like this. If patient is coming with cardiovascular risk factor and this patient is not having any cardiovascular risk factor disease symptoms, patient is stable, good functional capacity, proceed to surgery. If emergency surgery, no need to work up, just go for surgery. If patient is having ACS, unstable angina, decompensated heart failure, send patient to CCU for stabilization. If patient is not not an unstable patient, you should look for risk modifiers. Like risk modifiers means valvular heart disease, pulmonary hypertension, high risk congenital heart disease, prior stents or CABG, history of stroke, or patient on pacemaker or frailty. If these risk modifiers are present, then you should further calculate the risk. So if after calculation of risk, patient is coming to low risk, just go for surgery. If patient is having elevated risk, you can send patient for stress test, or you can further take help of other cardiac biomarkers also. So biomarkers I have already told, there is troponin T or BNP. If BNP or troponin T are normal, you can go for surgery. If trop T and BNPs are abnormal, further patient should be sent for further evaluations, whether non-invasive stress testing or coronary angiogram. So regarding coronary revascularization, lot of you see in if a patient is called for surgery, nearly 18% patients they have some sort of CAD, and CAD is associated with increased risk of MI. And for patients those who are non-left main CAD, revascularization is not recommended. So only revascularization is recommended if patient is having high risk anatomy or left main disease. Regarding hypertension, the guidelines say that most patients of hypertension, the antihypertensive should be continued, but some guidelines says that ACE inhibitor or RAS inhibitor, they should be
हाँ,
stopped below before 24 hours so that we can avoid hypertension. During intraoperative, mean blood pressure should be managed somewhere around 60 to 65. Regarding heart failure, all the therapy should be continued, but SGLT2 inhibitor they
आपको
should be
प्रॉब्लम होगा ना,
discontinued 3 or 4 days
तो
before
दिलवा दीजिए।
surgery. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, if patient is there with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, we should continue with beta blockers or calcium channel blocker. Here we should avoid hypovolemia and reduce preload, and avoid hypotension also in these patients.
ठीक,
Pulmonary hypertension is again a high risk situation. We should continue with all the drugs which patient was taking. There are some congenital heart disease which put patients on high risk, mostly the cyanotic congenital heart disease like DORV, pulmonary atresia, truncus arteriosus, TJ. These are high risk situation. If patient is having pulmonary hypertension, patient is in poor NYHA class or limited exercise, these are the patients at high perioperative risk. Regarding aortic stenosis, if patient is asymptomatic, then it's good. Here we should always look for ejection fraction. If ejection fraction is more than 50% and patient is going for low risk surgery, we can proceed for surgery. If patient is going for elective, patient is going for elevated risk surgeries, or patient is in high risk surgeries, then it's better to surgically repair aortic valve before surgery. Again, the patient of mitral stenosis going for non-cardiac surgeries, it's better to send patient for PTMC before surgeries if patient is symptomatic. But if you cannot delay the surgeries, perioperative heart rate control should be considered so that we can prolong diastolic time, and this is only one thing which can decrease perioperative cardiovascular complications. Nowadays we are seeing cases of TAVI also. So who the patients with TAVI, it is reasonable to perform non-cardiac surgeries early after successful TAVI as clinically indicated. Atrial fibrillation is also a common finding we very commonly see during perioperative surgeries. So if patient is coming with atrial fibrillations, it is reasonable to treat potential underlying triggers contributing to AF and rapid ventricular response. That can be done with beta blocker or calcium channel blockers. In patients post discharge, these patients should be followed for stroke reductions. These patients should be anticoagulated. Again, there are many patients for on pacemakers. Here we should program the pacemaker because there is always a chance of electromagnetic interference. So this should be programmed to appropriately before surgeries. After a TIA or a stroke, surgery should always be delayed for more than 3 months. Again, statins, RAS inhibitors, they should be continued. RAS inhibitor, this AS and ARB should be stopped or 24 hours before surgery to limit intraoperative hypotensions. And important, most of the patients are on antiplatelet therapy, and this antiplatelet, whether when to stop, this should be decided based on the risk of thrombotic risk versus bleeding risk. So this is nowadays we are not seeing many patients on bare metal stent. Mostly patients, they are coming with drug-eluting stents only. So if drug-eluting stent is put within 1 month, do not perform non-cardiac surgery. This is class 3 indication, but surgery should be delayed up to 12 months after DES PCI. If this is for ACS indications. If patient's angioplasty is done for stable angina, then the surgery should be delayed for up to 6 months. In any case, surgery should not be done, or surgery should be delayed at least for 1 month. For balloon angioplasty, you can delay surgery for 14 days, and for bare metal it is for 30 days. Regarding oral anticoagulant therapy, it is written you should judge whether there is high thrombotic risk or high bleeding risk, and the bridging should be decided. Like only very high thrombotic risk patients we should consider for bridging with heparin. Otherwise, we can go with surgery, just stop and go for surgeries. Again, beta blockers in patients, those who are undergoing non-cardiac surgeries and those who have no immediate beta blocker need, beta blocker should not be initiated on the day of surgery due to increased risk. At least if you are trying to, or if you want to give beta blocker, this should be given at least 7 days in advance. And if patient is already on beta blocker, that should be continued throughout the surgeries. Blood glucose, HbA1c, if more than 8, surgery should be delayed. SGLT2 inhibitor should be discontinued 3 to 4 days before surgeries. Anemia should be corrected because anemia also increases the perioperative or MI risk perioperatively. Then another important thing is myocardial injury after non-cardiac surgery. Lot of references we see that after surgery they just get the TROP-T and TROP-T comes positive. This is one entity which we called myocardial injury after non-cardiac surgery, and this is also important. Here outpatient follow-up is reasonable for further evaluation and optimizing, and these are the patients we should consider putting patients on antithrombotic therapy to reduce future CV events. So if patient is having possible MI, ECG should be done. If patient is not having ST elevation, means there is ST depression MI, plaque rupture if suspected, then patient should be treated as per NST MI guidelines. You should rule out other also cause which are responsible for type 2 non-ST MI, which are because of supply and demand mismatch. If you have already ruled out the other non-cardiac myocardial injury causes like sepsis, renal failures, pulmonary embolism, then patient should be treated as per guideline of MINS. Again, which is better, coronary CT angio or stress test? There was one trial which was not performed on patients going for cardiac surgery, but CCTA patients, they were associated with more coronary angiography and greater healthcare costs. So as far as cost effectiveness is concerned, the echo stress test is slightly better. If you compare TMT versus stress echo gives you better results, and this gives fewer clinic emergency room visit, less angiography, lower healthcare cost. But this is all data which is gathered from USA. So these guidelines are for USA. So stepwise approach to perioperative assessment is important. CV screening and treatment should be carefully timed so that we avoid delay in surgery, and this should be chosen in such a way to avoid over screening and over treatment. Team based care is important. There are new therapies for diabetes, heart failure and obesity that should also be taken into consideration for their perioperative implication. Myocardial injury means is a newly identified disease and should not be ignored. Newly diagnosed atrial fibrillation should always be followed closely after surgery also. Bridging of oral anticoagulant should be used very selectively. Unexplained hemodynamic instability, here if you have bedside echo or ultrasound, that actually helps in management or perioperative evaluation in patient going for non-cardiac surgery. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj, for such a nice lecture. I just simply want to know, my query is, suppose a elective surgery is there and the patient most of the time become so panicky, as well as the anesthetists, they also become panicky. The BP is 200 by 110. And what antihypertensive you will prefer at that particular time? Suppose we cannot postpone the surgery.
Yeah, that's an important question. This is some sort of like hypertensive urgency, we can say. If blood pressure is too high, that means if patient is going for elective non-cardiac surgery, that should be delayed, because with such a high blood pressure, there will always be a risk. But if blood pressure is in, I've already had one slide, if blood pressure is less than 180 or 110, we can carefully manage the blood pressure. Sometimes when you are taking patient for OT, there is general tendency that blood pressure will be slightly higher. So if patient is already, most of the time what we do, we just stop all the medications. कि जो BP की telmisartan या amlodipine कोई चल रही, तो we in the morning time, तो blood pressure won't go high if patient is taking regularly their blood pressure. And most important, we often forget that patient was taking amlokind 80 kind of medicines, and this beta blockers withdrawal is a very important cause of accelerated hypertension perioperatively, if you see. So if patient was already on beta blockers like atenolol or something, that should be continued on even on the day of surgery. This is very important cause. First we should give the medication which he was taking regularly, that we can give, then we can consider any antihypertensive. The beta blocker should not be started on the day of surgery. That was message, because perioperative hypotension, the risk will be more. Once you take a patient in and this you start anesthesia, their BP also suddenly comes down, especially after this spinal anesthesia.
Dr. Manoj, is what seen many times that suppose a patient had undergone coronary angiography during evaluation for free surgical evaluation, and you find lesions on distal or distal vessels or mid vessels, not on proximal, and you are pretty much sure that nothing is going to happen, and you send the patient to surgeon. Surgeon even see a lesion in a distal PD or distal PLB, he is not ready to blink, है ना, and he sends to you.
रोज ही होता है.
So then what you advise them? Whether you go for stress echo evaluation and it comes negative, you suggest to surgeon.
If patient is having good functional capacity, send them back की surgery कर लीजिए. हम लोग काफी ऐसा होता है कि 2 vessel patient with distal LAD, OM disease, RCA disease, सर्जरी हम लोग भेज देते कि कर लीजिए. Unless patient is very symptomatic, he is having left main disease or multi-vessel, triple vessel CAD, high risk anatomy or ejection fraction is quite low, then this patient should be considered for revascularization. Otherwise, first send them for surgery और बाद में देखा जाएगा कि इसका
And
revascularization.
there is another trend also because of frequent availability of CT angio nowadays. Even not cardiologist, even it is advised at physician or surgeon's level कि you have diabetes, hypertension, you go for CT angio first, then I will do something for your surgery.
CT angio is already not an indication for pre-surgical assessment. Na, there is only class 2B indications. But if only high risk anatomy is there, then only CT means revascularization should be considered. Otherwise, if there is distal disease, single vessel disease, better if patient is having good functional capacity, better send for surgery first.
I think if ECG is normal and stress echo evaluation is negative, then a surgeon can do surgery. No need for any further evaluation.
No, no.